Washington's Denzel Boston is poised to dominate the college football and 2026 NFL draft as a top wide receiver prospect.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He is the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our every dayers. The wide receiver run from the scouting notebook continues. Denzel Boston. We finally get to talk about some 6'4" receivers, Keith, those big boys. Denzel Boston, Nick Anderson, and then we got another shifty just do-it-all playmaker in Dion Burks. Two guys on this list that are coming back from injury-riddled seasons in 2024. But before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Denzel Boston with those Washington Huskies, Keith. Again, big dude, 6'4", 210. Keith, he looks like the traditional X-boundary receiver, possession guy. And the first thing I wrote down when watching him, Keith, contested catch king. Like, This dude is insane with the ball in the air. Like, the confidence is there. Like, they always talk about 50-50 balls. No, he makes them 90-10 a lot of times. Like, I believe he caught over 50% of his contested targets last year, right? Like, to be able to convert, almost 55% catch rate on contested catches. And you see that 6'4" frame, the longer arms, the long linear body, but the strong hands. Like, he tracks it well. He flashes late hands. Well, I love guys that nuance of at the catch point when especially receivers it's kind of playing out of phase. They're more in trail. They can't see the ball coming. They're reading you. And if you flash your hands too early, if your eyes get too big, you give them little telltales, they know the ball is on the way and it's almost there. But he does a good job flashing late hands. He tracks it well. Of course, high pointing, great catch radius. And I think this is a guy that you look at in terms of projecting in the NFL. I think he's the type of guy that will be more of that, like I said, that X receiver, that possession receiver, the boundary guy. You want to split him out wide. Just give him that. If you go 3-by-1, he's the one, Keith. That's how I look at him. He's the one. You want to give him that slant. You want to give him room to work. I do think that because he is a taller, stretched out frame, there is some it's kind of almost similar to Jaden Higgins, whereas like some of the sink and drive stuff can be a little segmented when he's trying to like gear down off of full momentum and stuff like that. I think there's more so just because of body type. Like he's not 5'10", 180 pounds. He's 6'4", 210. So it's like you're gonna have to deal with some of that. But I think he for the routes he runs, he's a good route runner and everything. I think this is going to be a guy that, to me, Washington should enter this season with giving him high volume targets. He needs to have as many targets as possible because he's their best player.
Yeah, and in watching him, obviously, you go directly to Rome Odunze, right? You go to Rome and you're like, okay, how does he compare to Rome? But not only Rome, right? But they had two other wide receivers, right? Because Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan both came from Washington. So first of all, shout out to Washington for just putting wide receivers in the NFL, kind of under the radar as far as that production, that part of it. But I look at him, DP, and I think the initial comp is probably going to be Rome just because he's a bigger guy. Like he has a big body too, right? Like he's not just tall and linear like our guy Cornell Tate that we talked about a couple episodes ago. He's also has body mass to him. He's a 210, 215 looking guy. But I agree. Now for me, I'm wondering, is he going to end up being one of those power slot guys? Like, is that kind of where he's going to be a bread and butter type player? But he's also another guy that, who did we talk about this with? It was Cornell Tate, matter of fact, because we were talking about that hopefully, like with increased target share, there's an increase in production because there are some things that kind of make you go, right? Like this guy could be a really good football player. And I'm talking about in the top 75 type range, good football player and elevating. But I think there just needs to be more, right? And I think you listed off the stats earlier. Just more target share, right? Like just more target share, more volume, make him the number one guy, lead the passing attack through him. And I think there's a lot of good things that could come from Denzel Boston. But off initial look, DP, I like him. Now it's just a matter of identifying what range and like, hey, do I like him first round? Do I like him second round? Do I like him third round? Right. But I would think that if I had to drop an initial top 100, right now at this moment, I would put him inside of there because it looks to be you're getting a really good football player. I guess where I settled was because you talk about possession wide receivers, right? And there are your Brandon Marshalls, there are your Alshon Jeffries, right? Ashton, it's Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon, Alshon.
I was making sure. I was about to say Ashton Jeffrey, but that's because Ashton. There's those type of guys, and then like you said, there's the next tier. There's the elite, kind of big body, the Julio Jones and things like that. I think he probably at this moment, I probably look at him more of Alshon Jeffrey-esque in that range.
No, and I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
not to cut you off, another guy I thought about, and I'll have to go back to the tape to see how they comp. Like this guy played for Carolina, Devin Funchess.
Oh yeah. Because that was I remember Devin Funchess. That was the year it was like him and Kelvin Benjamin. That was right after the Panthers said, Cam, great rookie year and all. We're getting rid of your top 3 pass catchers and we're bringing in guys that are rookies. And it was just like, this is not the smartest thing to do. You know what I mean? Like they let Steve Smith go and LaFell and Ted Ginn. It was just like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? So Carolina's had a very bad history of surrounding their quarterbacks with weapons. You know what I mean? But now they're doing a better job with Bryce Young for sure. But I think that the Devin Funchess one, I can see that for sure because he was a tight end at Michigan and converted over to playing that big wide receiver, that possession receiver style. And I look at Boston, and the crazy when you mentioned the power slot thing, that's the same thing that ran through my mind. I'm like, okay, projecting him to the league, is he probably going to be a better power slot than he would be a traditional pure X? Because again, the ball skills are outrageous. Because there was a rep, I can't remember which game it was, maybe Northwestern, and he either Northwestern or maybe Oregon, and he tried to outside release. They squeezed him to the sideline. They threw it up. The quarterback still threw it up. I was like, he's covered. And then out of nowhere, he just goes up. I think he got 2 feet in, the body control and balance in the air, you know what I mean? To just be able to go up, attack the ball, and still get his feet in bounds. And that's one of them situations where as a corner or as a coach, you look at your corner like, listen, there's nothing you could have done. Like you were there, like it's just nothing you really could have done about that. He threw it literally helmet or higher. He threw it. The elevator went to the 100th floor for him, and it went to the 74th for you. Like it just ain't much you really could do about that. And it's like, but I saw that play and I was like, man, like you would like to see him be able to stride past the guy, run past the guy, like and win vertically down the field. Now he's playing off coverage. He's good at being able to manipulate and angle his body and the movements of the little hesitate, the rocker step at the top of his routes. So for a big body guy, you're playing 6-7 yards off. Like I think he had a touchdown. I think it was Northwestern. He split a double team, the corner and safety off the rocker step.
Stemmed the DB a little bit, stemmed the corner and got inside of him and kind of split him. Yep.
And he tracked it well, and the ball was right on the money. You know what I mean? So this is one of those guys that old phrase of he's down there somewhere. Denzel Boston's that guy. And not only that, but I think once you get into the red zone, he's one of those guys you kind of condense the formation, then like late motion him out one-on-one. You get him up against some of these 5'10", 6-foot corners. You feel good about tossing it up to him. Like trust me, I know I've heard many times say how much she hates the fade, the fade ball in the red zone and everything. I get it, but that's one of those guys you feel very comfortable throwing that red zone fade and just isolating him. So it's going to be interesting to see how the season went for him because I forgot to mention the stats: 63 receptions, 834 yards, 9 touchdowns, over 13 yards per catch. And I'm excited to see how he looks, especially in the Big Ten. He did play pretty well against, like, you think about Michigan. He had, 10 targets, and Rutgers, Michigan, USC, Washington State, 4 games, he saw 10 or more targets in those games, and he's productive in every single one of them. So big season coming up for Denzel Boston.
Yeah, agree 100% with DP. Denzel Boston, we are on to Dion Burks. Yes, our guy from Oklahoma. He was initially a Purdue transfer, and him and Nick Scourton, right? The second round pick by the Carolina Panthers, the defensive end. They were at Purdue together, and they both transferred. Obviously, Nick Scourton went to Texas A&M. Dion Burks went to Oklahoma. This guy makes plays at the end of the day, and we're going to talk about this playmaker, Dion Burks, wide receiver, Oklahoma. Talk about him coming up next.
There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their ever-loving minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups have already delivered. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games, like the NBA Finals. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. And they make scoring NFL tickets just as easy, guys. You'll find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKED ONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Dion Burks, wide receiver, for Oklahoma. Last year he came in. We were super hyped about him coming off of that season at Purdue. We talked about the matchup he had against Will Johnson. And, when he was at Purdue that final year, 95 targets, 47 catches, over 600 yards and 7 touchdowns. Last year, he was dealing with injuries. It felt like the entire receiving core for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think at one point they were on wide receiver 5 and running out tight ends at wide receiver.
It was crazy. I don't know what was going on, or how it happened, but literally all their top guys got hurt on the depth chart. And you just it messed up that offense. Jackson Arnold didn't look good. It was hard to gauge and scout anybody if you were looking at. And I think Jackson Arnold transferring out, and now they brought John Mateer, and that's why I'm really excited about Dion Burks.
Yep,
because with Mateer coming in, being that playmaker, man, that gunslinger, I think he's going to give Dion Burks a lot of high quality targets. 5'9", 190 pounds, but he's electric. He's dynamic, explosive. Guy that you have to get the ball in his hands. And you look at him, Keith, I'm not gonna lie, he's to me, he's like the Ashton Genty of wide receivers. Like, he's a dense, strong built, low center of gravity wide receiver. Like, contact balance, he fights through tackles, gets the yards after catch. And the guys that I think he might have went to this school. I think he's going to end up being like a better version, or what we hope Rondale Moore was going to be. Rondale Moore just never stayed healthy, but when you could get the ball to Rondale Moore, and especially in Arizona, early on, you saw the big playmaking ability, the ability to take a 5-yard slant and make it a 50-yard gain. Like, Dion Burks does those things, so he can handle all of the gadget manufactured stuff, manufactured touch type of game plan, but also he can run routes. Like, he can. Like, that matchup, I challenge anybody listening to this or watching on YouTube, please go back and watch Dion Burks versus Will Johnson in 2023. Really fun tape. Two dogs 100%. Battling it out.
Great tape.
2 dogs battling it out. And that's when he really jumped on our rate. Like, that was the game. I guess, Keith, I think every player has it. Like, for when you stamp yourself, that was the stamp game for Dion Burks. That was the game where you're like, okay, if you're doing this to Will Johnson, and I'm not talking 2024, Will Johnson hurt, new defenses. No, that was Will Johnson at his peak, when you were able to have wins and successful reps and give Will Johnson some of the issues he gave him. Yeah, like that's how you stamp yourself, man. So I'm excited. John Mateer and Dion Burks might be one of my favorite quarterback wide receiver duos to watch during the 2025 college football season.
Yo, oh no, without a doubt, DP. And Dion Burks is a guy that I'm not jumping off the bandwagon, right? Like I
Right.
came in last year after watching him, was really aggressive, and obviously injuries took over. But what you see on tape is too good to deny. And we talked about this guy when we were discussing one of the other prospects. I can't remember which one. And we talked about the Zay Flowers, right? And
Yeah.
he's and I mentioned it and I'll say it again. He's in that tier as
Mm-hmm.
far as electricity, right? And the ability, DP, because a couple of our guys that fall in this category, trying to I think we're talking about Zachariah Branch
Yeah.
and
Zachary Branch.
playing
Yeah.
outside more.
Mm-hmm.
Dion plays that. He already does
Yeah.
it, right? Like you
Already
get
does.
matched up with Will Johnson because you lined up outside and you said, I'm ready to roll. And so Dion Burks, if this guy stays healthy, DP should be, and you talked about it, the pairing with John Mateer, he should be one of the most electric playmakers in his entire draft, right? Like he should be able to separate himself. I think when I look at it and we put all these guys in a bucket that we went through, Dion and Zachariah Branch, I feel like are kind of the two that they may have that as an elite trait, not just a good
Yeah.
trait, but have it as an elite trait with the start-stop ability and the electricity.
Yeah. Start ability, the changing direction, like really being able to reverse field, cut back against the grain. That just kind of innate ability, like and I said this about Travis Hunter, Zachariah Branch, and Dion Burks. Both guys, you get them in space with the football, they turn into like punt returners. It's
Mm-hmm.
very hard to get a hold of them and break. You gotta bring them down to the ground quickly, because if they gain momentum, now they start throwing out hesitation moves and jump cutting and doing different things like that to make guys miss and force those missed tackles. And with their elusivity, like their elusiveness is legitimate. And these are the type of playmakers. Again, you look at the NFL today, you need these type of guys, man. Like you need a guy like, because to your point, Keith, when you look at the numbers, so the games he did play, I think last year for Oklahoma, they put him in a different role than Purdue did. They had him 85% in the slot. While he
Mm-hmm.
was at Purdue in 2023, 91% of his snaps, he was outside. Like he was playing on the outside, on the perimeter. So this is a guy that can play. That's why Rondale Moore is very similar to the same thing. Zay Flowers, like you see that archetype of like, or like that smaller stature receiver that's super dynamic, explosive, strong, and physical, and you can give them the ball in a myriad of ways, but they can also play multiple positions in the offense. So I just want, whatever happens with Dion Burks in terms of from a draft projection standpoint, I want him with a I don't want him with Cliff Kingsbury. Like I didn't like Rondale Moore, Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff doesn't do a lot of motion. He doesn't do a lot of pre-snap motion stuff to give guys to force the defense to
Free releases. Yep.
Yeah, the free releases, to tip your hand. Okay, these guys bumping over a gap. Okay, that's zone. Like, okay, this guy traveling and following. It looks like man pre-snap. He's not doing any of those pre-snap indicator things. When you look at a lot of the top offense in the NFL, it's a lot of motion. They're moving guys around. They're creating, like I said, free releases, free runs, things of that nature. And I just kind of look at him. I want him to go with one. I want him to be drafted by an offensive coordinator or offensive-minded coach that's going to implement the stuff that he does well. Not just put him as a static aligned receiver and be like, hey, just win as a X, just win as a Z. No, hey, you know what? I'm going to put you at Z and I'm going to motion you to the slot on the opposite side of the formation, and let's get you against a safety because they're rotating down. They're playing a different coverage, and now we get an advantageous matchup because that strong safety has no business in coverage against you. My quarterback knows that we're going to get the ball to you.
Yep, I agree 100%, DP. And Dion Burks, he is a guy that I'm probably going to stay aggressive on. John Mateer, we both like him at quarterback. Yeah, I can see this connection working out really well.
Explosive.
Being mutually beneficial. That's the word. Right. That's the word that we're using with that situation. With DP, we have another. Well, this guy's a former Oklahoma wide receiver, transferred to the Bayou. Yes, he's right around the corner from me. Mr. Nick Anderson. We're going to talk about him, another big body wide receiver, 6'4", 210, 215, another big boy that can run. We're going to talk about Nick Anderson, wide receiver from LSU, coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayer. 6'4", 219 pounds, listed as Nick Anderson. Keith, you talked about it. You said it about Dion Burks. You're not going to stop being aggressive. If you remember last summer coming into that season off of summer scouting, this was my guy. Nick Anderson was my guy. I'm not backing off of it. I'm not backing off either one of those dudes. I wish he stayed at Oklahoma. But either way, unlike who do we talk about that went to Eric Singleton. Unlike Eric Singleton, who's going to a questionable quarterback situation, I feel pretty good about the targets that Nick Anderson is about to see over in LSU with our guy Garrett Nussmeier. And man, I'm looking forward to seeing him like really take the field in LSU this year against 6'4", almost 220 pounds. But this guy's a long strider. He can glide past. Like he has good speed at 6'4". He uses his stride very well. Coming off a season in 2023 for Oklahoma, 60 targets, 38 receptions, 796 yards, average 21 yards per catch with 10 receiving touchdowns like in 2023. And I believe he only played one game and he got one target in that game, and then he was hurt again. And it was a lower body injury, if I remember correctly.
I think hamstring. I believe it's hamstring.
I think it was the hamstring. I think it was a hamstring as well. So, like, coming back healthy, like, those are the type of injuries that can linger, those soft tissue injuries. He had a whole season basically to get healthy, whole off season. Now transferring to LSU, Keith, I would be shocked if he's not the wide receiver one for Garrett. I think he comes in with that NFL size, athleticism, skill set to where Garrett's like, oh yeah, like I can do some things with a guy with this type of like skill set and ability. I think he runs good routes. I'm gonna say this, Keith. He is, to me, he's gonna be this year's Teteroa McMillan, just with a little more juice to me. I think he gets. I think not even a little bit. I think he has more juice. Period. I think he wins the vertical plane, and I never felt like Tet was slow. I just felt like Tet didn't play with urgency. Like Tet was more of that, in the basketball term, that Luka Doncic. Like
the James Harden, the Luka,
just slow dribble, just smooth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I look at Nick. Nick is sudden, like, and I appreciate that, especially for a big body receiver. He's got suddenness to him. He doesn't really waste time at the line of scrimmage. He gets into his route, into his release, and he gets vertical. And I'm like, I really, especially now being, it would have been in the SEC anyway if he was at Oklahoma last year, if he played. But now being healthy at LSU, you're going to end up seeing potentially Georgia. You're going to see Bama. You're going to see some high caliber corners. This is an opportunity for him to legitimately stamp himself as a first round caliber guy. I'm bullish on him, Keith. I think seeing what he did in 2023, like I think he can do that and more with Garrett Nussmeier in this LSU offense.
Yeah, and so in the way too early mock that I released right after the draft, I put him in the first round. I think he has that type of potential. And I'll go even more aggressive, right? If he does what he needs to do at LSU, and he does what we've seen from him in 2023, right? I think he has top 10, top 15 pick written all over him. Just when you combine the size, the explosiveness, and he's not a big body wide receiver that's just kind of out there. This is a guy that he runs with intent, right? Like you see the best way to call it is he has body control when he's running. Mm-hmm. He's not just kind of gangling out there, everything is strong. Like it's strong, it's powerful movements with him. So I'm all in on Nick Anderson. Also, as far as him just staying healthy, what I do like for him is that he left Oklahoma. Our guy John Mateer's there, but he's going to a proven quarterback with Garrett Nussmeier. And Garrett, he's going to need guys like this because I think this is going to be the first year where it's kind of really just an entire revamped wide receiver core for him, to where I feel like for probably maybe the past 6, 7, 8, 10 years, LSU year over year has had a defined number one guy, right? Like it's been a minute, maybe since the DJ Chark year. And I think when they had Matt Canada in like 2016, maybe that was like the last time, and that was almost 10 years ago, just crazy, that LSU didn't have a defined number one, right? Like you knew who their number one guy was, and it went from Justin Jefferson to Jamar Chase to the Keyshawn Bouttes to the Malik Neighbors to like it's just always been who the number one guy is. And this year, I think it's up in the air. Nick Anderson has the opportunity to just snatch that thing and say, hey, if it's 10 targets per game going to the wide receiver one, I'm wide receiver one, right? And he has some speed guys, because we have to remember too that a guy that we thought was interesting a couple years ago, Barian Brown from Kentucky, the Sweetser. The guy, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this too, this guy he may run the fastest 40 at the combine, right? Like we got
to get into his tape. We got to get into his tape coming up next week.
But they have him also, but I think that Nick is more well-rounded, and I love to see him DP, just do the traditional things. And you know me, I always go to 3rd and 5, run the quick slant, get open, right, and get the ball. But I also want to see him run them curls, right, and fight through contact and come down with the football. Then, because I think the stuff that comes easy to him, DP, is actually the vertical stuff, right, and that's the stuff that kind of comps to, in my opinion, to Rome Odunze. Like that's the stuff, like the vertical striding, open up my stride, and I have deceptive speed to get on top of you. And I think they probably compare athletically too. Just frames and things like that. So I like Nick Anderson, and he's a guy that right now I would be buying stock on, and hopefully to cash in and saying, you know what, this is a really good purchase.
I think, especially, to your point about Garrett's such an accurate quarterback with his ball placement and everything else. He's going to give him the opportunities down the field, even in like you're playing Alabama or Georgia, you're dealing with Dalen Everett and he's in the hip pocket. He's going to throw that back shoulder fade to you, and it's going to be an accurate ball. The one thing that he didn't convert on in terms of Nick Anderson in 2023, he was 3 of 12 on contested catches. For 6'4", 220, I need that to improve. What I mean? We just talked about Denzel Boston. Denzel Boston is the contested catch king, while Nick Anderson is the better athlete. He runs better routes. He separates better. But when you are in those tightly contested, like, you look at like NFL Pro, for those who haven't checked it out, go subscribe to that, because they have like different things for receivers where it's like tight window percentage and tight window throws, and it shows the numbers and they show the film clips of when you are in those tightly contested reps, in those targets. You need Nick Anderson to start converting those and go from 3 of 12 to 7 of 12, right? 10 of 15. You need to be able to convert those tight window, highly contested situations, because when you get in the league, you're going to face the Jalen Ramseys, the Quinyon Mitchells. You're going to deal with the Cooper DeJeans, the Patrick Surtains. And you're going to deal with these top tier corners that are going to be in your hip pocket. And your quarter, the way that, you saw it every week in practice with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. When your quarterback trusts you in them situations, he's going to throw it to you. And when you can convert those, that's kind of like those Steph Curry threes in the sense, Keith, where you play good defense, he chucks it up and is like, that's deflating. You know what I mean? Like that's what those contested catches do to a corner. Is like, I'm right there. There's no space for you. Quarterback tries the back shoulder. I'm still right there. And you still catch the ball in bounds. And it's a 15, 20-yard gain. And it's just like, what more can I do to stop this connection? That's what Nick Anderson has to do in 2025 for me, is start converting these contested catches. You're a big dude, man. You're a big dude. Play big. Because I think that if he doesn't keep, that's going to be the knock on him come draft season. People are going to start saying things like, oh, he doesn't play big too. He doesn't play to his size. Different things like that. I think somebody, was it Steve Smith, might have said that about Tet. I was like, I don't agree with that, but you got it. You know what I mean? But I think that was some of the narrative around Tet a little bit. But I like the Rome Odunze comp for Nick Anderson. I thought about Trey Harris a little bit, because I think Harris won too, but I think he might be a faster athlete straight line than Trey Harris is as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this year pans out. But Nick Anderson, Dion Burks, Denzel Boston, 3 legitimate playmakers that, if they stay healthy, could have big years in 2025.
Yep, I agree, DP, and I think this will be a pretty good wide receiver class.
I think so.
Overall, stacking from top to bottom. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to the podcast, you'll get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On Monday's show, guys, we're going to get into Barian Browning. Barian Browning? Yeah, Barian Brown. The receiver going from Kentucky to LSU. Speedster. Is he comparable to Deshaun Jackson, to Ted Ginn, those kind of slender but explosive wide receivers? We're going to talk about that on Monday's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.